So in chapter 6, Ponyboy and Johnny went in a burning church and they rescued 4 or 5 young children. They threw them out the window. Ponyboy got out, but Johnny was in really bad shape and a timber fell on his back. And then they were rushing the boys to the hospital. So Jerry, the school teacher, went with the boys to the hospital. And when we left off of chapter 6, Derry and Soda and Pony had just reunited. They were worried about Pony because he was gone for 5 or 6 days. They didn't know where he was. They knew Bob had been killed. They thought maybe Johnny had been killed. And I'm sorry, Johnny had killed Bob. And so that's where we leave off on chapter 6. And now we are going to do chapter 7 of The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton. Now there were 3 of us sitting in the waiting room, waiting to hear how Dally and Johnny were. Then the reporters and the police came. They were asking too many questions, too fast, and I'm scared of police anyway. Finally, Soda Pop got tired of the reporters and stretching out on a long bench, he put his head in Derry's lap and went to sleep. I guess both of them were tired. It was late at night, and I knew they hadn't had much sleep during that whole week. The hospital was real quiet after they left. The nurses wouldn't tell us anything about Johnny and Dally, so Derry got a hold of the doctor. Derry went to talk to the doctor. The doctor told us that he would talk only to family, but Derry finally got it through to him that we were as much as family as Dally and Johnny had. Dally would be okay after 2 or 3 days in the hospital, he said. One arm was badly burned and would be scarred for the rest of his life. Dally will be okay, I thought. That's Ponyboy thinking that. Remember, because he's our narrator. So when we hear I, that's Ponyboy. Dally will be okay. He always is okay. He could take on anything. It was Johnny I was worried about. His back had been broken when the piece of timber fell on him. He kept calling for Dally and Pony. If he lived, he'd be crippled for the rest of his life. You wanted me to give it to you straight, the doctor says. Now go home and get some rest. Derry was rubbing the back of my head softly. We better go home. We can't do anything here. In our Ford, I was suddenly overcome with sleepiness. I leaned back, closed my eyes, and we were home before I knew it. I guess Derry was tired of fooling around because he picked me up and carried me inside. I went to sleep the minute that Derry tossed me on my bed. I'd forgotten how soft a bed really was. So remember, for the last 5 days, he had been sleeping in that church on the floor, and all he had was Dally's jacket. I was the first one to wake up the next morning. Anyone home? A familiar voice called through the front screen, and Two-Bit and Steve came in. We don't have a picture of Steve, sorry guys, but this is Two-Bit. We always just stick our head into each other's house and holler, hey, and we walk in. Our front door is always unlocked just in case any of the boys is hacked off at his parents and needs a place to stay over and cool off. In here, I yelled, forgetting that Derry and Soda Pop were still asleep. Don't slam the door! Oh, they slammed the door, of course, and Two-Bit came running in the kitchen. He caught me in his arms and swung me around. Hey, Ponyboy, he cried gleefully. Long time no see. You would have thought that it had been 5 years instead of 5 days since I last saw him, but I didn't mind. Steve, who gave me a playful slap on the bruised back and shoved me across the room. How do you like being a big shot hero? What? How do I like what? Ponyboy. Being a hero? You know, he shoved the morning paper at me impatiently. I stared at the newspaper. On the front of the paper, of the second section, was a headline: Juvenile delinquents turned heroes. So on the heroes, like juvenile delinquents are kids that usually get in trouble and aren't very good kids. But they say that, so these kids that are known for getting in trouble are now heroes. The whole page was covered with stories about us, about the fight, the murder, the church burning down, the socials being drunk, everything. My picture was there with Derry and Soda Pop. The article told how Johnny and I risked our lives saving those little kids. They had interviewed Cherry Valance, and she said that Bob had been drunk and that the kids had been looking for a fight, or the boys had been looking for a fight when they took her home. And Randy Adderson also said it was their fault and that we only fought back in self-defense, but they were charging Johnny with manslaughter. That's like a charge for accidental death. When I discovered I was supposed to appear in juvenile court for running away, and Johnny was too, if he recovered. So running away is illegal. You're not allowed to do that. It is not safe, and a lot of people get worried. So the police had to come for him because he ran away. So he has to go to juvenile court because he broke a law. There was another column just about Derry and Soda and me. All the boys, the brothers. And how Derry worked 2 jobs. It mentioned Soda Pop dropping out of school so that we could stay together, and that I made an honor roll at school all the time, and might be a future track star. Then it said we shouldn't be separated after we worked so hard to stay together. I sat down in a daze. We couldn't get hauled off now. Not after me and Derry had finally got through to each other, and now that the big rumble was coming up, and we would settle this Soch greaser thing once and for all. So remember, Derry had said that they're all going to get in a big fight, the Soches versus the greasers, and that they were going to end this thing for good. Derry came in behind Steve and lifted him up off the floor and then dropped him. Then Soda came running in. Derry said, "Hurry up, we're going to be late." Soda ran back, I'm hurrying. You know what Soda Pop said to no one in particular? When we stomp those Soches good, me and Stevie here are going to throw a big party, and we'll go chase those Soches clear to Mexico. Then Derry said, "We better get to work." Derry was pulling on his jacket. "You two, do up the dishes, and then you can go to the movies if you want before you go see Dally and Johnny. Ponyboy, you take a couple of aspirins and go easy today." So remember, Ponyboy had just gotten out of the hospital, so Derry wants him just to kind of relax and take it easy. "We'll see y'all this afternoon after work. We get off work." I said, "We're going to clean up the house. And the reporters and the police and somebody might stop by. And it's time for those guys. It's time for those guys from the state to come by and check up on us. And if you had the sense of a billy goat, you'd try to help out around your place instead of bumming around," Ponyboy said to 2-Bit. When we finished cleaning up, we started for 10th Street. We stopped at the Tasty Freeze to buy Cokes and rest up, and a blue Mustang had been trailing us. Who drives the blue Mustang? Randy, right? That's the Soch's car. The Soch's that had jumped me and Johnny at the park hopped out of the Mustang. I realized Randy Adderson, Marsha's boyfriend, I recognized Randy Adderson, Marcia's boyfriend, and the tall guy that had almost drowned me. It was their fault Bob was dead. Their fault Johnny was dying. Their fault Soda and I might be put in a boys' home. Two-Bit said, "You know the rules. No jazz before the rumble," he said to the Socs. So he's like, we're not fighting until the big fight. We're not messing around. "We know," Randy said. He looked at me. "Come here. I want to talk to you, Pony," he said to Pony. "I read the paper about you," Randy said. "I would never believe a greaser would pull something like that and help those kids out of that fire. Greaser didn't have anything to do with it. My buddy over there wouldn't have done it. Maybe you would have done the same thing. And maybe another Soc or a friend of yours wouldn't have. It's about the person." "I'm not going to show at the Rumble tonight," Randy said slowly. "I'm sick of all this. I'm sick and tired. Bob was a good guy. He was the best buddy a guy could ever had. I mean, he was a good fighter and tough and everything, but he was a real person." I nodded. I could tell he was close to tears. "I'm sick of the whole mess, too. That kid, your buddy, the one that got burned," I'm sorry, that was Randy saying this, "he might die?" "Yeah," I said, trying not to think of Johnny. "And tonight, people get hurt in rumbles, maybe even killed. I'm sick of it because it doesn't do any good. You can't win, and you know that, don't you?" So he's saying that, what does fighting do? Fighting doesn't do any good. And he says, you're still going to be a greaser. You'll still be where you were before, at the bottom. The greasers are at the bottom. And we'll still be the Socs at the top. We'll be the lucky ones who still always get all the breaks. Greasers will still be greasers. And Socs will still be Socs. I think I'm going to leave town," Randy said. "Running away won't help. Remember, he said it's illegal and now he has to go to court." "I know," Randy half sobbed. He's almost crying. "I don't know what to do." "I'd help you if I could," I said. He looked at me. "No, you wouldn't. I'm a Soc." I got out of his car. "You would have saved those kids if you would have been there. You would have saved them, same as we did. Thanks, Grease." Then he stopped. "I didn't mean that. I meant, thanks, kid." "My name's Pony Boy," he said. "It was nice talking to you, Randy." I walked over to Two-Bit and asked, "What's the Mr. Super Soc have to say?" "He ain't a Soc. He's just a guy. He just wanted to talk." "You wanted to see that movie?" "No," I said, but I felt better. Socs were just guys after all. Things were rough all over, but it was better that way. That way, you could tell the other guy was human too. That's the end of chapter 7. And he said, really, we just figured out we're both humans, and we both feel, and we both hurt, and fighting is not the answer.